Joining us via phone call to dissect this is the Director General of Good Governance at Advocacy International, Sir Leonard Ayongo. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on News Hour tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start off with the return is imminent to democracy, starting with the Thanksgiving on Sunday. But before that return, what do you think are the key takeaways from this experience, this 6 months of, will I call it, administrative rule, and what does that mean equally for the Nigerian democracy?
Well, Mr. President Tinubu, acting under Section 305 of the Nigerian Constitution, declared a state of emergency and installed a sole administrator. But the takeaway is that there have been a lot of controversies whether Mr. President has the constitutional power to remove a sitting governor and or remove or suspend a sitting governor and the state legislature. But unfortunately, we're not given the opportunity because some of these matters were filed at the Supreme Court. And as a constitutional lawyer, I was looking forward to seeing a ruling on that application to the Supreme Court. So that for once, we will now be aware that when a state of emergency is declared, Mr. President, it's either that we will now know whether he has power or not to declare, to remove an elected governor or not. But unfortunately, up to the moment as we speak, the Supreme Court didn't take that application. So that is just one side of it. So that controversy is not rested. But what is uncontroverted is that by the virtue of Section 305, Mr. President can declare a state of emergency either in the whole country or part thereof. But just like I said, the other part is whether he has the power to remove an elected governor or not. So since there's no constitutional, there's no judicial pronouncement on it, especially at the Supreme Court. Now, you also recall that the Nigerian Bar Association, as a body, has strongly condemned the removal or the suspension of Governor Fubara, and the Bar Conference that was supposed to be held in Port Harcourt was moved to Enugu. It shows that Nigerians were not united or were not in agreement to the suspension of Governor Fubara and the state legislature. So, but when you look at it, other side of the coin, the democracy is now being democratic governance is now being restored. I mean, expectedly on the 18th of September, when the 6-month initial suspension will have elapsed. So that is just the tidbit of what we can discuss at this stage.
Okay, so I'm going to just point out some of the things you said in your answer. Let's go back a bit. Now, you saying the Supreme Court has not given a ruling. Peradventure, in the near future, or somehow, there's a ruling that comes up about this situation. Would it in any way impact what has happened in Rivers State? That's
well, it will. It's going to become an exercise in futility. Just like I said, as also an active legal practitioner, I believe or we expected that we will have the opportunity of the ruling on that subject matter by the Supreme Court, which didn't materialize until this suspension period is now almost over. So if there's a ruling that Mr. President does not have the power to remove a sitting governor despite the state of emergency declared, then of course it will be an exercise. It will become an academic exercise because the sole administrator has acted within this period, this 6-month period. So if you go ahead and say, okay, you declare that it was null and void, but actions have been taken, and then of course there's no vacuum in governance. So we seriously believe, I still advocate that the Supreme Court should have opportunity on ruling or taking on some of these matters, especially this controversial issue whether Mr. President has the power to remove a sitting governor or suspend the state assembly. So if we expect that we are going to get a definite ruling at the Supreme Court one way or the other in future.
Okay. Now, another question again. The 6 months period, first 6 months trial period is over. Do you believe that the reason for the state of emergency being called has been resolved and the things that were hoped to be fixed has been fixed to now return back to democratic rule?
Well, you know, the reason that was given by Mr. President when he declared the state of emergency was that there was anarchy. Remember that there were some bombing of pipeline and all that. Of course, that directly threatened the Nigerian economic position.
Yeah.
So, but some people will disagree that people were not being killed. There were even more insecurity in other states compared to Rivers State and all that. So, if you look at it from the political angle, you argue the way you argue. But if you look at it from the legal perspective, does Mr. President has the right to declare a state of emergency by virtue of Section 305? Yes. Of course, that has to be affirmed by the National Assembly, which they did. So, if you look at it legally speaking, those procedures were followed. But politically speaking, of course, let me speak as the DG Good Governance Advocacy International. Now, the question is that is democratic dividend being delivered by the governors of Rivers State? The truth about it is that because of the kind of controversies that were ongoing between the State Assembly and the Governor Fubara, there were complete aberrations where 4 members could pass budget and all that. Of course, remember that the Supreme Court also declared the actions of Governor Fubara null and void. You know, so those controversies erupted, and then, of course, the Supreme Court even went further to say the elections that brought the then local government chairman were null and void. So,
okay.
At that point, you cannot say they were governance, effective governance. And that's why we say that Nigeria State, after politics, comes governance. Because politics is just a vehicle. The destination must be good governance.
Okay.
And that's where we are quite interested.
Okay. All right. Our final question. Just since you brought the governor, what do we expect of Fubara? What do we expect? You know, are we going to see, compared to who he was before this whole situation, what are we expecting from Governor Similayo Fubara going forward?
Permit me to be political at this point a bit, because someone told me that Fubara has been politically beaten. That's in quotes. That means that he has learned a lot of lessons. We expect, just like I said, we expect good governance in Rivers State. We expect the collaboration, not subjection, not subjugation, rather, between the State Assembly and the executive arm of government. You know, these are clear-cut demarcation of roles that are being played by the different arms of government. And so we expect that they will work in unity to deliver good governance in Rivers State. That is our yearning. That is the yearning of the state. That is the yearning of the nation, and of course the global community that want to see good governance being delivered in the state. And the right atmosphere is to have that mutual respect, checks and balances as enshrined in the Constitution, where the State Assembly has a clear control to oversight the executive, and the executive has to implement budgets and laws that have been passed by the State Assembly. Okay. It's all for good. It's all for the good of the people of Rivers State.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Sir Leonard Ayango, for joining us from Good Governance Advocacy International, sharing your insights on the situation in Rivers.